it's Donna from Scenic Roots Garden Center. It is time. It's time to start planting your summer vegetables. It's time to start planting your summer annuals. But I wanted to take this moment to give you a quick little tutorial on tomato planting because I know you're all itching to plant your tomatoes. And we can finally do that. Our night temperatures look like they're going to hold up above 50 from now through, obviously, into the fall. So, number one is location, location, location. Your tomatoes need at least 8 hours of sun all day long. Full sun. Tomatoes need full sun. So that's 8 hours plus. So if you don't have that, please try and find an area that you do. Otherwise, your tomatoes will suffer. They have stunted growth. They may not flower as much as they want. If they don't flower, the flowers don't produce tomatoes. Your tomatoes may not ripen, and it also could increase the possibility of fungal and disease. Number two is proper space. When you're doing a normal sized tomato, you need at least a 2 by 2 area, 2 foot by 2 foot area. If you're doing a bush or a hanging tomato like a tumbling tom, a patio tomato, obviously those need smaller spaces. Next is choosing the right tomatoes for you. Grow what you like to eat. Don't just grow what's available like in bulk. Grow what you like to eat. If your family likes to pop the cherry tomatoes, when I was a kid, I put one in each cheek and I'd squish it. I still do that to this day, and I can't wait to teach my daughter this year to do that. Grow your cherry tomatoes. You like slicing tomatoes. You do a lot of BLTs. You're going to need a beefsteak or a larger heirloom tomato. You do a lot of tacos, salsa. You need a mid-range tomato. Experiment with flavors too. I do at least 1 or 2 cherry tomatoes of different colors. I always gravitate towards the sun golds, where they're the really super sweet yellow cherry tomatoes. I do a black cherry. I've tried blue indigo, which is another darkish purpley cherry tomato, and obviously sweet 100s. Those are your small red cherry tomatoes. I do a slicing tomato, so I do a rose or a brandywine, which is an heirloom tomato, for slicing BLTs, and then I'll usually pick some random tomato brand new to try. I always leave myself room to try one new tomato, whether it's pineapple, black krim, green zebra, you know, all those different types of different tomatoes. Valencia is another awesome tomato, is an heirloom. It's a orange tomato, just full of flavor. So anyway, so plant the tomatoes that you like and you know you're going to eat. We have a lot of singles of tomatoes, so you don't have to always buy a 6-pack and wonder what you're going to do with all this space. Am I throwing away tomatoes? Even though they're only, you know, $3.99 for a 6-pack, you may only need 2. It's not a lot of money, but you don't end up using it. So once you decide on your tomatoes, it's about picking the right size of tomatoes. When I pick a tomato, I try and go for a smaller size like this. It's more manageable and easier to plant. I do not plant a tomato like this. It's already seen some better days and will need some help. I also love picking a tomato like that. Look at the thickness on the stem of that one. It already has some really great canopy to the leaves. When you plant your tomato, if you take a tomato like this, I pinch off the bottom leaves here like this. I'll even pinch these 2 off. I'm doing it right here for you. And then I will plant my tomato this deep in the ground. Can you see that? I'll bury it halfway down, because your stem here, you see when you have a tomato, you already have fuzzy little hairs. When you bury your tomato this deep, your roots are going to come out underneath here, and it's going to make for a stronger stem of a tomato. I always do that. So if you happen to only be able to buy tomatoes like this, bury them this deep into the ground. That'll force the roots to come out from the stems, and then this top part will only be that much stronger. So please bury your tomatoes deep. When you're ready to plant your tomatoes, this is a little trick. This is crushed eggshells. When I eat my eggs, I save the shells, and then I wash them, and then I put them in the oven at like 350 for 45 minutes to an hour to get rid of the egg yolk. And then I put a tablespoon in the bottom of the hole. Tomatoes need calcium. You can plant with Costa Maine lobster compost. There's already some lobster shells in there that help with calcium, but when I do my tomatoes, I put like a tablespoon or like a little pinch in the bottom of the hole so the roots readily take in the calcium. Calcium helps to prevent blossom end rot in your tomatoes. As your tomatoes are ripening, if they have lack of calcium, that's when you get that black spot on the bottom of the tomato and it gets a little mushy and disfigured on your tomatoes. The next thing I want you to do after you plant your tomatoes, stake them that day if you can. Use a tomato cage, use a hardwood 1 inch by 1 inch stake. What this does is it prevents you from disrupting the root system a month down the road, a couple weeks down the road when your tomatoes are already grown half of its size, if it's already up a foot or 2 feet. When you enter the stake into the ground, you're disrupting the roots, and that'll cause it to go backwards a little bit, may stunt its growth. You have to wait for it to recover and then grow again. So if you can remember to stake your tomatoes the day or the week that you do them, that helps also. And then the last thing I just want to remind you is to water your tomatoes at the base of the plant. When they're in the ground or if they're in a pot, please try and take your hose or your watering can right to the base of the soil. Try not to spray them overhead with a water wand or sprinkler system. That just increases the spread of disease and fungus also. When you're spraying overhead, the spores, especially when it gets humid, those spores start to spread from water splashing down. You know, it happens in rain too. But if we can prevent any little bit that we can, this is one to do, is to water at the base when you can. It's recommended that vegetables get at least an inch of water a week. So try and keep that in mind when you water. I don't just look at the surface soil to see if it's dry. I stick my finger in the ground to see if there's moisture under an inch level. And if it's dry, then I will water. If the first like half an inch or inch is dry, but it's wet underneath, I won't need to water for a couple more days. So just keep in contact of that. And it's very important to water when they start to flower, water when they start to fruit. They obviously need more water. So, but that's for another occasion. We'll talk about that later. I just want you to have a couple of the basics now as we're going into the weekend before Memorial Day weekend, and the first weekend of June. Those are prime planting seasons for vegetables and tomatoes. So if you have any questions, please email scenicrootsgardencenter@gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, you can Instagram us, and you can call us. Happy planting.